Hi, I'm Louis Falgu, and welcome to the Music Breakdown. And today I am reviewing the new Black Dresses album, Peaceful as Hell. Black Dresses are an industrial pop, electro-industrial duo consisting of Ada Rook and Debbie McCallion. Now, I come into this album as a huge fan of Debbie's solo work and of Black Dresses. The three prior Black Dresses albums, Waste Isolation, Thank You, and Love and Affection for Stupid Little Bitches, comprise some of the most interesting music to have been released in the last 2 years. It's not just Black Dresses' great combination of pop and industrial that makes them so interesting, but it's also their confrontational and direct approach to tackling very personal and harrowing themes. I think prior to Peaceful as Hell, there has been a gradual narrative of sorts that's come about through the three records, with each one of them gradually embracing themes of love, connection, hope, and friendship through the absolute darkest and most hellish of circumstances. The transition from Thank You to Love and Affection alone demonstrates this, with Thank You being an incredibly polarizing and harsh album, getting contrasted up against Love and Affection's much more comforting and pop-oriented tone. Frankly, I think Love and Affection for Stupid Little Bitches is one of the best albums I've heard all decade, an incredibly tight collection of 9 songs demonstrating their theme of love and affection, and an incredibly potent, heartwarming, but also without complacency to their situation. So I was interested to see if this new album would fit into that trend, or if it didn't, what kind of new themes it would try to communicate on its own. Here we have a collection of 15 tracks, the longest track list the duo has given us yet, as well as the longest album length. I think it's immediately worth noting that this album actually doesn't really try to further a theme or progress any sort of narrative, at least not in the way that the last albums did. The album opens with the relatively understated Left Arm of Life, wherein Rook compares the group's companionship to a pearl that has been molded by its environment and yet still clings to hope, ending with the repeated mantra, "All we can do is try again." I think this is a great opener, not only for this album, but also coming off of their previous work. It sets this album up almost as a culmination of everything they've discussed before. And in a way, it does end up being that, considering that many of these songs tackle similar topics, but with a newfound confidence, and also even a newfound positivity on some tracks, like Beautiful Friendship. Right after Left Arm of Life, we are thrown into Damage Suppressor, a song that is cranked up to 11 almost the entire time. Very, very loud, however, also oddly bubblegum, or at least as bubblegum as Black Dresses can be. I love the chorus on this song, and I also like the break section where they bring an acoustic guitar, which is unreal to hear on a Black Dresses album. Here's the thing about this album, though. What Damage Suppressor sets up ends up pretty much being the majority of the record. Which is not to say that the tone always stays exactly the same, but this amped up loudness and even bubblegum pop sensibility runs through the majority of the tracks on this album. It definitely feels like the most hyperactive Black Dresses album. It is always in your face, but not in the overwhelmingly unpleasant way of like Thank You, more in line with the general tone of Love and Affection for Stupid Little Bitches, maybe? I mean, I don't know, in a way it does combine elements of all of their past work, and introduces its own new elements as well, most notably a lot of guitar. And I think the integration of guitar into the band's sound is actually a really nice fit. Sometimes it just kind of blends into the background, you barely even notice it's there, and on other tracks they bring it right to the forefront and it works even better, like on the fantastic middle section of Scared to Death. Although this track list does occasionally have some more mellow points, they're few and far between. And there are 15 tracks here. And the songwriting on this album is very eclectic. Very few of these songs feel completely cohesive. They're definitely constantly shifting. Even the ones with verse-chorus structures, the verses and choruses don't always completely line up. And it definitely feels like an intentional decision to have these songs constantly evolve in this way, but sadly it ends up really making this album a moments album. There are very few songs in this thing that I enjoy every single part of. Most songs on this album have parts that I really like and parts that I don't like at all. Like, I end up remembering certain song sections more than certain songs, such as the incredible guitar leads on the verses of Express Yourself, the harsh vocal sections of Beautiful Friendship, the fun trading off chorus of Mirror Girl, and the pleas for people to be nice on the internet on the chorus of Please Be Nice. But then each of these songs also have sections that just don't leave nearly as much of an impact. I think of Express Yourself's underwhelming chorus, or Mirror Girl's rather Black Dresses by the Numbers verses, and so on and so forth. I could really say this for most of the songs on the record, and it's kind of a shame. I feel like the eclectic nature of this album comes more from weaker songwriting than it really does from a strong vision. This especially becomes a problem when there are so many tracks and they are generally staying at a very similar level of intensity and excitement. It all turns into a blur. It's also kind of fatiguing in a way, which is not to say the album feels longer than it is. I don't even really think this album feels its length somehow, but it definitely after a certain point just starts to kind of breeze past me. That is minus a few notable standouts like the aforementioned Beautiful Friendship and Left Arm of Life and Scared to Death, with the most notable exception being the incredible song Creep You, which is already one of my favorite tracks from the group. The live instrumentation almost entirely makes up this song, with the drum and bass section in the verses on this song sounding really, really warm and nice. And the song just has such an infectious and even somewhat cathartic hook, which in the latter leg of the song repeats itself over and over as the song gradually falls into distortion and glitchiness. The song is basically like Black Dresses clashing with 90s alt-rock, and I am so here for it. Unfortunately, it feels like one of very few songs here that is an entirely cohesive and strong song. Even a song that I love, like Scared to Death, is essentially split up into 3 completely different sections, all of which are good, but some are better than others. Now, I do think most of the material here is solid. The only songs I outwardly don't like are the rather underwhelming Sharp Halo, even with Debbie's incredible vocal performance at certain parts of this song. It kind of fails to hold together, it doesn't have a very good hook. I'm also not crazy about Impossible Dream, whose short length just kind of fails to make an impression on me at all. And then, I think the worst Black Dresses song winds up on this album, which is Angel Hair. I just fundamentally cannot get behind what Rook is doing on these verses here, with the sticky, sticky thoughts, itty bitty worry, drippy, drippy dreams. It is very silly. But aside from these exceptions, I do think the album is generally above average. Devi and Rook give mostly really good performances as always. The lyrics are generally pretty decent, although not as interesting as they have been on previous records. And the songwriting, while seeming a little bit weak to my ears, definitely has its moments where it shines. But ultimately, I think this is Black Dress's weakest album yet. And I am giving it a decent 6.5 out of 10. But don't let that score dissuade you from checking out Black Dresses. You absolutely should. Even this album's probably worth checking out, but especially some of this band's previous work. I think this duo is really doing some amazing things, and I have not at all lost hope that they can put out another great project.